headlines. President Moon Jae-in's special team of envoys are en route to Pyongyang to talk denuclearization and arrange the upcoming inter-Korean summit. However, one man not heading to Pyongyang anytime soon, Chinese President Xi Jinping. President Moon holds phone talks with US President Donald Trump. The South Korean leader says improvements in inter-Korean ties will only help efforts to denuclearize the regime. Plus, a trail of destruction as Typhoon Jebi slams into Japan. The storm of historic intensity kills at least 9 and injures hundreds more. So, our top story this morning, President Moon Jae-in's team of special envoys is travelling to Pyongyang for talks on the upcoming inter-Korean summit set for this month, as well as the regime's denuclearization. The delegation is comprised of the same 5 officials who visited the North Korean capital around 6 months ago, and they have been credited for playing a key role in bringing all the different sides back to the table after months of rising tensions back then. Let's speak to our Shin Se-min, who's following this story from South Korea's top office for us. Se-min, the delegation departed for Pyongyang just after dawn this morning. What, if anything, do we know about their trip thus far?
Right, Mark, the South Korea's presidential envoy and his delegation of 4 other officials left for the North Korean capital of Pyongyang at 7:40 a.m. Korea time, and the clock just struck a little after 10, meaning, and so that's the general consensus here, is that the envoys have already arrived in the North Korean capital, but the presidential office has yet to confirm on their arrival just yet. And prior to their departure this morning at the Seoul Air Base, the envoys were tight-lipped, not saying a word to reporters upon their departure. And about their schedule for the day-long trip, there's nothing much we know at this point, not even the time of arrival to South Korea, as the special envoy Chung Eui-yong told reporters yesterday that most of the details will stay under wraps until they actually land in North Korean capital. But despite those unknowns, South Korea's presidential office is known to have carefully coordinated today's trip. For one, the same 5 members, as you just have mentioned, left today, visited Pyongyang for 2 days in March, which planted the seed for North Korean leader Kim Jong-un's respective summits with South Korean President Moon Jae-in and U.S. President Donald Trump. And South Korea's top office says it wants this visit today to go as smoothly as it did back in March.
Well, we wish them all the best. It's always tough to get any kind of concrete commitment out of the North Koreans, especially on denuclearization, as we've seen over the past few weeks. However, the diplomatic landscape has changed beyond recognition since these same South Korean officials last travelled to Pyongyang in March, and we are really hoping that this trip will be just as successful as the last.
Right, that's the goal, Mark. The South Korean special envoy left for Pyongyang with an ambitious agenda to work out the impasse over North Korea's denuclearization. And that exact word was said by the special envoy Chung yesterday at the top office as he was speaking to reporters about his plans to, quote, completely denuclearize North Korea, as well as settling and implementing the lasting peace in the region. Listen to this.
As President Moon said before, this is an extremely important time in terms of establishing peace on the Korean peninsula. Peace in the region and complete denuclearization go hand in hand.
So 3 major things we can expect from today from the envoys. 1, settling on the specific date and agenda for the inter-Korean summit in Pyongyang this month and negotiating ways for a complete denuclearization of the Korean peninsula. And lastly, talking about improving relations between the 2 Koreas by implementing the Panmunjom Declaration signed by the leaders back in April. Now, the special envoy Chung added that he will be carrying a letter from President Moon Jae-in to North Korean leader Kim Jong-un, but it still remains unclear whether he will be delivering that letter himself to North Korean leader Kim. Mark?
Well, thank you very much for that report, Semin, and keep us updated throughout the day. Now, with North Korea-related diplomacy moving at lightning speed, the leaders of South Korea and the United States, they talked on the phone for about 50 minutes on Tuesday night Korea time. It was a productive call, with both agreeing to look into holding a one-on-one meeting on the sidelines of the UN General Assembly that's going to take place in New York City later this month. Our Blue House correspondent Hwang Ho-jun reports.
Should President Moon attend the UN General Assembly in New York later this month, the presidents of South Korea and the US could meet on the sidelines to hash out future strategies on issues regarding the Korean Peninsula. Presidents Moon Jae-in and Donald Trump had a 50-minute phone call on Tuesday night, just a day before the South Korean envoys headed to Pyongyang to discuss the Inter-Korean Summit that will be held in Pyongyang this month. According to the Blue House press release, President Moon briefed his U.S. counterpart on the reason for sending envoys to North Korea to discuss preparations for the third summit between him and North Korean leader Kim Jong-un. Moon also emphasized the need for a fresh round of inter-Korean dialogue to reduce tensions between the two Koreas, which will ultimately contribute to denuclearization and the establishment of permanent peace on the Korean Peninsula. However, after the phone conversation, the Blue House was cautious to confirm that President Moon will, in fact, attend the General Assembly. While White House spokesperson Sarah Sanders said the two leaders agreed to meet later this month, the Blue House said in a separate readout that the two leaders agreed to, quote, explore the idea of meeting in person on the sidelines of the General Assembly in New York. The phone conversation between the two presidents came less than 2 weeks after President Trump canceled U.S. Secretary of State Mike Pompeo's planned visit to Pyongyang, citing lack of progress on the denuclearization of the Korean Peninsula. Hwang Ho-jun, Arirang News.
We now have confirmation Chinese President Xi Jinping will not be visiting North Korea ahead of the regime's 70th founding anniversary. That is happening on Sunday. The Chinese leader will send one of his right-hand men instead. Lee Seung-jae with more.
North Korea will celebrate the 70th anniversary of the regime's founding on Sunday. But one VVIP that won't be there is Chinese President Xi Jinping. According to state media in both countries on Tuesday, President Xi will instead send a high-level delegation led by Li Zhanshu, the chairman of China's National People's Congress. Li will travel to Pyongyang on Saturday, a day ahead of the celebrations, as President Xi's special envoy. Li, considered the third most powerful official in China and President Xi's right-hand man, will be the highest-level Chinese official to visit North Korea since President Xi came to power in 2012. In recent weeks, there had been speculation President Xi might attend these celebrations in what would have been his first visit to North Korea. The Chinese leader has met North Korean leader Kim Jong-un 3 times this year, but always in China. According to a former senior Chinese official, President Xi might believe he has little to gain from such a visit. With Pyongyang and Washington in a deadlock over how to proceed with the denuclearization talks, the Chinese president would be put in an embarrassing position if the North's military parade includes nuclear-capable weaponry. China has supported proposals encouraging Pyongyang to give up its nuclear arms. A visit would have also risked angering the U.S., which is strongly urging Beijing to maintain maximum pressure on North Korea. With or without President Xi's attendance, regional players, including China, are eager to see whether North Korea's military parade will include a display of intercontinental ballistic missiles. Experts say their absence from the streets of Pyongyang on Sunday would signal to the world that North Korea might be serious about denuclearizing. Lee Seung-jae, Arirang News.
Now, in other news, as the National Assembly's 100-day regular session started this week, the leaders of South Korea's 3 main parties are taking turns addressing lawmakers. Today, it's the Liberty Korea Party's turn. Kim Sung-tae, who is the floor leader of the main opposition party, used most of his time to criticize the government's policies, claiming they are negatively affecting the economy. He said the government's minimum wage hike and drive for shorter working hours are forcing small business owners to lay off part-time workers. He also stressed that all of the government's policies come with a heavy price tag for taxpayers. Kim called for an all-out revision to the economic policy direction and said his party will come up with ways to turn things around. On North Korea, the floor leader said the ratification of the Inter-Korean Summit declaration reached in April is not timely, as it's too early to determine whether Pyongyang is fully committed to denuclearization. After 5 straight months of gains, South Korea's foreign exchange reserves edged down on month in August. The Bank of Korea says reserves amounted to $401.1 billion, down $1.3 billion from July. The central bank said the drop was largely due to the stronger US dollar, which in turn decreased the value of the BOK's assets in other currencies. As of the end of July, South Korea had the world's 9th largest foreign exchange reserves, with China topping the list. South Korea's central bank has released its revised data on the nation's second quarter GDP growth. Figures show the economy slowed down compared to Q1. Kim Hae-sung with the details.
South Korea's economy expanded at a slower than expected pace in the second quarter. According to the Bank of Korea on Tuesday, the country's GDP for the April to June period rose 0.6% on quarter, slower than the first quarter's 1% growth.
Second quarter growth is 0.1 percentage points lower than our earlier estimate released in July. While facilities investment has been revised up 0.9% in the second quarter, construction investment, exports and imports have been revised down.
Although facilities investment were higher than the earlier estimate, it still tumbled 5.7% in the second quarter, marking the largest on-quarter drop since the first quarter of 2016 due to falling investment in machinery and transportation equipment. Construction investment also contracted around 2% from 1.8% growth in the first quarter as investment in residential buildings decreased. Exports, which account for nearly half of South Korea's GDP, rose 0.4% on quarter, slowing from a 4.4% rise in the first quarter, while imports retreated 3%. Semiconductor exports increased, but autos, home appliances, and ships dropped. Private consumption rose 0.3% as consumers spent more on clothes and medical services, but it was still slower than first quarter's 0.7%.
When you look at contributions to GDP growth, domestic demand turned to a minus in the second quarter. The contribution of private consumption dropped 0.1 percentage points on quarter. Facilities and construction investment have also contracted as expected. These data show domestic demand is likely to continue slowing down.
Government spending climbed 0.3%. Real gross national income shrank by 1% as import prices were higher than export prices. On-year GDP expanded by 2.8% in the second quarter, on par with the first quarter. The BOK says to reach its growth target of 2.9% for 2018, the local economy has to expand by 0.91 to 1.03% in the remaining 2 quarters. Kim Hae-sung, Arirang News.
Now let's stick with economic news. Consumer prices here in South Korea are continuing to grow too slowly for the country's central bank. The Bank of Korea is targeting 2%, but overall price growth remained firmly rooted in the 1% range last month. Kim Jeon reports.
South Korea's consumer prices remained in the 1% growth range for the 11th straight month in August. Statistics Korea says overall consumer prices increased by 1.4% compared to the same month last year. The rate of increase was pulled down by electricity, water, and gas prices, which plunged nearly 9% on year. The statistics agency says the government's revision to the progressive electricity billing rates has some impact on consumer prices, lowering them by around 0.3%. Most of the price increases came from vegetables and fruits, as well as crude oil. Prices of agricultural livestock and marine products climbed 3.5% from the same period last year, affected by the record-breaking heat wave.
To stabilize prices ahead of Chuseok, Korea's Thanksgiving holiday, the government laid out measures late last month on 14 main items such as cabbages and fruits to increase their supply at local wholesale markets. Up to 70% discounts will be provided during the holiday period.
Prices of Dubai crude, Korea's benchmark, traded at around $73 a barrel on average in August, raising the prices of local gasoline by 11% on year. Core inflation, which excludes volatile oil and food prices, edged up nearly 1% on year.
The most important factor in determining consumer price increases is probably domestic demand, which is indicated by core inflation. The level of consumer price increases is likely to stay below the BOK's 2% target since core inflation remains around the 1% level.
Last month's consumer price increases fell below the Bank of Korea's target of 2%, raising speculation that the central bank is likely to pursue monetary tightening measures at a gradual pace. The BOK kept its benchmark interest rate at 1.5% for the 9th consecutive month in August. Kim Ji-yeon, Arirang News.
Now, South Korea aims to gradually ban disposable plastic cups and straws within the next decade as part of its broader initiative to reduce the amount of waste that is produced. Now, households will also be charged by the amount of food they throw out instead of the current set rate. Kim Hyo-sun with the details.
Statistics show people in Korea use a total of 25.7 billion plastic cups and 10 billion plastic straws a year. The Ministry of Environment and other related ministries have laid out plans to reduce the nation's waste. The 10-year plan on sustainable waste and resource management, submitted during a cabinet meeting on Tuesday, includes a ban on disposable cups and straws by the year 2027. The government also aims to prohibit excessive packaging. In addition, the measures include reducing food waste by introducing the radio frequency identification or RFID waste bins. The government estimates this can reduce food waste by over 35% by charging households by the amount of waste. The system will be made mandatory at apartments by 2022 and be installed at restaurants within a decade.
Our top priority is to reduce waste in the whole process of production, consumption, management and recycling, and to redirect waste into the production process.
This initiative, the government says, will help South Korea reduce the amount of waste by 20% and increase the real recycling rate to 82% within a decade. Kim Hyo-sun, Arirang News.
Now, let's turn our attention to the latest from the International Shooting Sports Federation World Championships that are taking place in the southeastern city of Changwon. And the home team, South Korea, is off to a wonderful start with some extremely steady hands. They've racked up 4 gold medals in as many days. So Bo-bin reports.
The South Korea men's pistol team of Lee Dae-myung, Park Dae-hoon, and Han Sung-woo grabbed another gold medal for South Korea on Tuesday, winning the men's 50-meter pistol team event. The team earned a total of 1,670 points to win South Korea's first gold in the 50-meter pistol team event since the 2010 Munich ISSF World Championships 8 years ago. On Monday, the South Korean women's rifle team of Im Ha-na, Jung Eun-hae, and Kim Ji-hyun also won a gold medal in the women's 10-meter air rifle team event. The team set a new world record of 1,882.6 points. The women's air rifle team has already won 2 silvers and 1 bronze medal in Changwon, but this was the first time a South Korean team has ever won gold in the women's air rifle 10 meters team event. South Korea is currently ranked number 1 in the medal standings with 4 gold, 4 silver, and 4 bronze medals. So Bo-bin, Arirang News.
A powerful typhoon has slammed into western Japan, leaving at least 9 people dead and more than 300 others injured. Typhoon Jebi is said to be the strongest to hit that country in 25 years. For more on this and other news from around the world, let's turn to our No Aram. So Aram, fill us in on the latest.
Well, Mark, the Japanese government issued evacuation advisories for more than 1 million people following the storm's landfall on Shikoku on Tuesday. Typhoon Jebi has since moved across Japan's largest main island of Honshu, leaving tens of thousands of people without power. It has also left thousands of travellers stranded at Kansai International Airport in Osaka. Hundreds of flights had to be cancelled after strong winds and high waves flooded runways. Railway services in and around Kyoto have also been paralysed. Bullet train services between Tokyo and Hiroshima were also suspended, but some were resumed later Tuesday when the typhoon left the region. Universal Studios Japan, a popular amusement park near Osaka, also had to be closed. Officials warned of possible landslides, flash flooding and violent winds, urging people in affected areas to evacuate quickly. Japan is no stranger to strong storms and other natural disasters, but this one certainly does pack a punch. Jebi, which means swallow in Korean, is the first typhoon to be classed as very strong by Japan's weather agency since 1993. The storm is expected to weaken as it moves north and out to sea. The British and French governments are discussing ways to address the so-called scallop wars between English and French fishermen. Violent clashes escalated in the English Channel last week, with boats ramming into each other and projectiles being thrown. French fishermen argue their British counterparts have an unfair advantage as they do not have restrictions on scallop harvesting. Paris has barred French boats from operating in the area between May and October in order to protect shellfish numbers. The French government has said its navy would intervene in future clashes to ease tensions. The UK said it hopes both sides can reach an amicable solution. Amazon has become the second company on the US stock market to surpass $1 trillion in value after Apple. The online retail giant enjoyed the milestone briefly on Tuesday before slipping back. However, market watchers are confident it won't take long for the firm's stock market valuation to eclipse that of Apple. The iPhone maker took 38 years as a public company to reach the 13-digit milestone, while Amazon got there in just 21. As well as its online retail service, Amazon's video streaming and cloud computing services for businesses have helped boost its profits.
Good morning. Some pleasant weather conditions are in the forecast with more sunshine expected. Temperatures will continue to hover around the seasonal average. And daily highs should be similar to yesterday, ranging between 28 and 29 degrees Celsius. Another band of rain is in the forecast for Friday, and after that, it's going to start to feel more like the autumn. With that, let's take a look at the international weather for viewers around the world. So South Korea will enjoy dry and sunny weather with warm daily highs today. In most parts of North Korea, we'll see weather conditions improving. Typhoon Jebi was downgraded to a severe tropical storm Wednesday morning and continues to head north after smashing many parts of western Japan. People are urged to stay alert for gusts, rough seas, landslides, floods, and swollen rivers. Central New Zealand is in the firing line for the third day in a row as heavy rain and gale-force winds are expected throughout the day today. Tropical storm Gordon has picked up a little strength and is expected to make landfall and strike parts of the U.S. Gulf Coast by Tuesday night, potentially turning into a hurricane before then. As for South America, those in Rio de Janeiro will need their umbrellas handy again on Wednesday. Temperatures in the UK are set to take a sharp drop this week as an area of low pressure engulfs the country over the weekend. Lastly, to Africa, Tripoli and Cairo will see sizzling sunshine and scorching daily highs. That's the weather update for now.
A little slice of Switzerland in Korea there for you. Well, that's where we're going to leave it for now. Stay tuned to Arirang TV. Our next newscast is coming up at noon Korea time, as always, with our very own Lee Ji-yoon. So until then, goodbye.